I want to summarise briefly in a nice several-minute soundbite everything that we've touched on today. That's right, I'm about to monologue. Who is David Chrisafulli? The man the media has called the incumbent premier of our beautiful state, the man who has sold his entire election promise on a completely imagined youth crime epidemic, ignoring all the actual data about the crime wave sliding down like an LNP government's undies in a room with Gina Reinhardt. God, what a woman. Before we get to what's actually hot off the press for this election, I think we should dive deeper into who this man actually is. LNP leader David Chrisafulli wants to lock up children for crimes that will get worse under his government as they refuse to feed and house them. But how does his crime policy extend to adults who do crime, like, say, politicians? Chrisafulli, man of the people, in what appeared to be a bid to truly embrace Trumpian politics, found himself pursued by the Supreme Court of Victoria this year for insolvent trading. Should mention the case never left the court, however the case did happen, and it was alleged that Chrisafullashit funneled $320,000 of taxpayer money into a company which he then went on to become the sole director of. He then paid a further $200,000 in a confidential settlement to keep the court case a secret from Queensland voters. You know, like an innocent person wouldn't. So while youth crime is actually at its lowest levels in years according to all available data, this petulant alleged criminal is able to campaign on nothing but locking up kids for extended sentences for crimes far less severe than the one he allegedly got away with. The data shows that long-term incarceration is the best way to breed more organised criminals, so maybe he's just leading by example for the incoming gangs created by his poor policies. On a whim, I'd have to imagine that a big political reason for the youth crime lockup is so that when the next Labor government does come in, they can rightfully relax these terrible laws and get called softcocks by the Murdoch media and the LNP as the wave of Chrisafulli created gangs take to the streets. The LNP are poisoning the watering hole so that they may continue to run their taxpayer-funded business selling you shitty filters. Except instead of water they're destroying, it's children's lives. The youth crime graph shows that during the Labor government in Queensland, we have had one of the sharpest decreases in youth crime across Australia. There is a small growth after 2020 because everyone lost their jobs and things went to shit. However, it has been proven time and time again that programs like free school lunches and social care for families and kids leads to a further reduction in crime. And that is what the Labor government are going to do, while Chrisafullashit and the LNP are simply going to lock them and their families up and throw away the key. Treating the symptom, not the root causes, has never progressed any issue ever. Oh, but the LNP are so much better at economics. I want an economy to do well, and I don't want us going into debt. The party has refused multiple times to release a full costing statement for their $17 billion worth of bullshit promises, with Chrisafullashit himself saying that they will simply pay for it by, quote, respecting your money, much like he didn't respect it when he allegedly stole $320,000 of it for his own company. Now, I don't understand the economy. It is, as I've said, bastard math for wizard people. Having said that, I do understand a good graph. Over the last 2 decades, Queensland has seen steady and measured growth in economy, only slowing in growth due to massive issues like COVID-19 or having an LNP government. Though it may not feel like it because of the great issues, we have significantly better results compared to all other states and territories, except the ACT, in what business people call final demand, which is a measure of how well we can actually afford to consume goods and services. On abortion, the LNP have refused to say whether there will be a vote of conscience between MPs. Chrisafulli refused to say whether he would support a bill to restrict or recriminalise abortion, but it is noted that previously, in March, Chrisafullashit said that he would not change the abortion laws if elected, and has now changed to saying no comment. Which means, alongside the fact that earlier this year the Christian right faction took hold of the LNP's Griffith Federal Divisional Council, with noted pro-teen parent Alan Baker, that they are definitely going to follow America's disastrous banning of abortion. Otherwise, they might run out of kids to lock up. On transgender policies, parliamentary proceedings show exactly how the LNP think of your human rights as transgender people. Chrisafullashit and the Christo-fascists are fanging to remove your rights as transgender people to exist in society. When asked about policies, the supposed leader of the LNP is consistently inconsistent. The only thread pulled tight between any of his statements is that they are going to privatise more services to take your money and trickle it down to their rich mates. According to an article by Julia Anaf, Toby Freeman and Fran Baum, published in an offshoot of the journal Nature, as well as a single shred of the scientific principle of have a fucking look around, the privatisation of public services is likely to have had an adverse impact on population health and contributed to increased inequalities. Chrisafullashit has a history alongside his former political daddy, Campbell Newman, of privatising fucking everything, including more of our health services. So how do they plan on delivering their, quote, cheaper GP visits while giving less funding and sacking healthcare workers, which they said they won't do, but they also said that last time and then sacked 4,400 of them. All this is to say, I want to live in a Queensland that isn't trying to line the pockets of Chrisafullashit and his rich mates. I want a government that treats everyone as though they are human beings deserving of care, and unlike the LNP, I extend that humanity to women, children and transgender people. We here at Bronze Lining are saying adamantly that we are endorsing Stephen Miles for Queensland Premier on the platform of actually trying to make things a little bit easier for Queenslanders in noticeable ways. Yes, it's taken some time for the ball to really get rolling, but why the fuck would you kick it back in the other direction now? I say here as the person who pitched this show as a force for good and optimism that I am really, really scared of what this election will bring. But I can promise you that for every action against your basic human rights, dear listener, we will forever be part of the army of good speaking out against it and working to ensure actual positive change no matter what. Bad politics comes like a wave. It is a weather event. Weirdly, it is one that is fueling climate change and yet more bad weather. Dark times will pass, but not without us standing up and doing what's right. And in true Bronze Lining fashion, we will be the first people on any broadcaster to directly and unequivocally call David Chrisafullashit the petulant, thieving, child-hating, possible teenage pregnancy-causing, slimy cunt. That is appropriate use of language, because to say any less would be hiding the truth. And we don't do that here, unlike the LNP. Thank you.